Welcome to the Love, Purpose, Connection podcast. I am your host, Estelle Bingham, and together we'll be delving into the profound meaning of love, the driving force of purpose, and the beauty of connection that shapes the fabric of our lives. In each episode, I sit down with some of the most inspiring individuals out there to understand the ways love has touched them. Jonny Wilkinson is widely regarded as one of the greatest rugby union players of all time. He has a place in the World Rugby Hall of Fame. Since retiring in 2014, he's been a rugby pundit on ITV and Sky Sports and is a sought-after public speaker. He's also the founder of health and wellbeing brand One Living, which is super exciting. We'll talk about that today. He also explores mental well-being and peak performances through his I Am podcast and supports charitable work with organisations that empower teachers, coaches and young people. I am super excited to welcome Jonny to the Love, Purpose, Connection podcast. Jonny, it's so wonderful to have you here. We obviously met sitting on the sofa, didn't we?
Yep.
Of The Independent had a podcast, and it was their first podcast. And I was a guest and you were a guest.
Yep.
And I have to admit, and I know that I admitted to you, I was like, afterwards, I was like, I didn't really know who you were. And I know that you're like mega, like you're epic. When I mentioned Jonny Wilkinson, people are like, oh my God.
I need to meet these people.
Listen, they're out there in their droves. And I was just, that was one thing. And we can talk about, obviously, that incredible, extraordinary career you've had in rugby. But what I was so utterly struck by was your presence and also your journey. And that was why I just wanted to talk to you more. And there were so many questions and you were just literally so in flow and speaking and embodying really so much of what a healing journey is or a healed journey is or what it means to be on a journey and just really yourself, just really so authentic.
Yeah, I guess there's probably a story to tell in there, but it's funny. I remember back as a young kid when I was really, I used to just get beside myself with anxiety and stress or whatever before I took anything on, but especially around my sport. And there were some really funny bits of advice that came from, whether it be my dad, my mum, your friends, or people just giving you their best sort of shot they could before you go out there to try and help you. And they felt good, things like the two I remember were just be yourself. And the other one was just go out there and give it your best shot. And I sort of, and maybe the third one was, enjoy it.
Yeah.
And as I've looked deeper, I've gone into all these amazing spaces and experiences, but it keeps coming back to those three things to be like, if you take those seriously and you devote your life to finding out what it is to be yourself and devote yourself to what it means to give something your all and what it means to look after your inner state of that enjoyment, to take care of yourself, as it were, then that looks after everything. But I remember all I did with those was it was like it just calmed you down a bit before you went out. They gave you a sense that maybe it's all right. And then you went out there, but then the next week you'd have the nerves again and you'd sort of use it as a bit of a crutch.
Right.
But I've grabbed onto those and sort of gone, okay, let's go. Let's find out what it means to be you, to be authentic, to be present, to give all your, to be fully here now, what it means to live. Because I spent a long time in my career trying to get somewhere, and I kind of did. And when I got there, it was a beautiful experience to realize these things. But it just didn't reach down to that level that I thought it would. It didn't take care of that hole in me that I figured that this would be the answer to. And that brought up a question. Luckily enough, I was 24 rather than at the end of my career. I sort of had a chance to explore, well, what does it mean to really make the most of this moment? It's another great bit of advice, just make the most of it. It's like, what does it mean to make the most of being alive, being here? And that question just hasn't gone away. And I can't cheat it with another thing of, but when we get here, it'll all be okay. It's like, I've been there, I know that. And so I'm on a journey, if you like, to to be ever more present, to give things ever more of myself, to be, to really look after that inner state, which is what I figured the outside would take care of for me. And that's the healing part.
When you speak with this incredible eloquence. I mean, it's
Right.
so eloquent.
Very kind. Yeah, the first person that's ever said that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. And really, you're on a spiritual journey because you're talking about this inner world. And I'm really curious about it because I'm curious about what that looked like for you or felt like, or even if you you were kind of realizing that that was who you were, whilst also being this sort of peak, real kind of athletic, like, peak performance athletes, world, renowned athlete, that you're kind of you're balancing these two things at the same time. So I'm, mentioning being 24, that's a real sort of quite an involved way of being in the world, isn't it? Thinking I have an inner world.
Yeah, I mean, 24 is probably doing myself a favor. I think there was a bit of a signal at 24. I had some confusion in there, which started to manifest as maybe a bit of a depression, a bit of a darkness around this idea that, geez, what was that all about then? Most of my journey, if you like, has been, I think, guided by that sense of, I think it's something that a lot of people have, a sense of doom around being young. Just everything I looked at had this very fragile nature to it, so that there was like I said, this kind of darkness there that I couldn't put a face on. So I kept trying as a kid to say, well, what is it? Is it mortality? That felt close, right, when you come used to that. But that death, if you like, found its way into mini deaths, failure, death of an idea, death of a dream, whatever it was, death of an identity that I'd built myself up to be the fastest, and now I had to win the race because it would be a death of me being all of this insufficiency-based kind of awe-inspired stuff. And that part is what's guided me, because it's been underneath. And it keeps leading me to these crises moments where how I've built myself in defense of it can no longer go forward. Life presents the gray when I need the black and white, and you have to open. And that's been the crux of it. And I think at various stages, I had lots of professional help, but never really hit until I was 26 when I had a big one. And someone I was speaking to, really, really good guy, just happened to mention the Buddha. And I was on this journey of being my answer to the darkness up until that point was kind of in that immature state, was to pick a role model. A lot of it was religion, some of the other role models in my life. And it was around this, be the savior, be the warrior, be the martyr, those three things. So I took that into my rugby, and it's like, right, I need to take all the responsibility. I need to I need to fight every challenge. I need to take on every battle. And if it has to be me that gets hurt, I have to put my body on the line in that state. Thankfully, I had this other part of me, which was use that as a kind of seeking mastery as well. So I had that sort of desire to fine tune all my skills and be the best at this and what have you. But those three sort of, the three archetypes that I had in me were kind of a real driving force. They were my answer to that perfection. But when it came to this Buddha idea, it touched on enough of that, because it was a single guy who went out and took on this challenge. Whereas before it felt a bit like, here's me and here's the answer. And now it was like, hold on, this guy felt like he had some of those archetypes in him, this ability to go out there and say, I'm doing this, I'm taking it on. And that touched enough of me to say, right, I'm going to shift away slightly from this, and I'm going to go towards this inner world. And I didn't become Buddhist, as it were, but probably about a week later, I was in a hotel. I was in a bad state at the time, but I was in a hotel for some reason. I don't know where I was, staying before an event for something. Funny hotel, like small hotel. I opened the bedside drawer, and there was a tiny little book in there, and it was something like the mini book of Buddhism. And I sort of went, oh, okay. So I nabbed that. Sorry, apologies to the hotel,
Yeah.
but that's mine.
Yeah.
That's coming with me. And I did. I kept it, and I started to get intrigued by that. And then that intrigue led me to push further in. And then I started to find things, whether it be, I went into quantum physics because scientifically I wanted to sort of have a look at where that fitted in, because I was also someone that liked the rigid structure. And then that led me to self-investigation and the yogic sciences, and all of it guided by this one question of being like, how do you make the most of being alive? Having had these brilliant experiences of having everything you want, but these other experiences of feeling very down in that space of what's the point? And realizing that actually both of those were leading me to the same place, which was getting serious about living in order to be as playful as possible about it.
Wow. So that was a real synchronistic moment, wasn't it? I mean, if we think about the universe coming to
definitely.
get you.
Yeah.
It sort of tapped you on the shoulder.
Yeah.
And, you've mentioned really quite a few dark nights of the soul, which is really what they are in a way. Those moments where we feel like we're breaking down or really low or on the floor. But they're actually our breakthroughs if we can kind of look for, or sort of just the glimmers of light or hope, or those little nudges that the universe brings us. So that sort of book felt like it was just bringing you sort of back home to yourself, or guiding you, or, giving you a resource.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was the angle of it being the curiosity and the innate sort of desire and interest and willingness to go in there and explore. But the other powerful element, like you said, is the darker side and that vulnerability, and stepping into that vulnerability. That's where that feels where the biggest unfoldings have taken place. The curiosity allows me to sort of nudge into little new spaces, but it's almost like there's a big falling away when it comes to that facing vulnerability. And undoubtedly those crisis moments have been the ones where, and there's been everyone has been navigated and understood, and I think felt through quite clear moments of just accepting something which you just don't want to accept.
Can you give me an example of that?
It's difficult to give concrete examples, but I remember just having a real, issue with something, and it was driving me into that darkness. I have to, warrior, martyr, savior, I have to win this. And none of my definitions of those experiences, those archetypes, had in it the power of acceptance. They were all conquer and win. The martyr was to be injured was good. So therefore I'm holding myself in this state. I was injured in the middle of my career for 5 years. Okay. Sometimes I wonder whether that desire to be the martyr was also a compelling part of my identity that I kept alive. However, I don't know how I did that, but you look at the number of injuries I had 14 in a row, all around different areas, some really crazy things happening. And I'm kind of almost thinking, was I holding back that healing because it was something that I felt was part of who I was compelling to me? The savior part, wanting to be needed, adored, and all that kind of stuff. But there was no space in this for the warrior, the martyr, whatever, to just accept. And probably as well because of that there also was this funny need for there need to be recognition. When I was young, I was speaking about, I want to be the best. But it's like, well, what I was saying was I want people to see and recognize me. Whereas this acceptance is like, nobody sort of goes, oh, that's great acceptance from you over there. Yeah, let's all cheer the acceptance. Like, you do it. It's unconditional. There is no, I'll accept so I get this. It's not accepting you. It's willingly stepping into the death of something.
So it's not transactional.
Yeah, the example I have, like I said, struggling with this thing and just drawing a line and saying to myself, this is it. And there's like a silence within me where you recognize, you say, I don't want this. Every part of me is saying no to this, but this is it. After this, there's no more of that. And you've made that line clear. And it's that compulsion that wants to keep finding the answer and find the answer. I need that safety. And you kind of recognize that this has to stop. One of those, I know when I was, like I said, when I was 26, I sort of just went, the problem's me. And the acceptance is it's me. And you say, I'm not looking to the outside. There's no more blame. the problem's in here. When I say problem, the
challenge,
challenge
the
is in here,
issue.
the blockage or whatever, the resistance is in me, and it's like it's mine to sort. And then that leads you, and suddenly you get this unfolding. But you can't manufacture those. You can't be like, oh, I'm having challenge, I'm going to do this. It's like challenge is challenge because it hurts. And when I'm in that space, I don't want to be in it. I'd almost give anything to be out of it. But the only thing there is to give is give up.
Right. Is that surrender?
It's that surrender. I said, and those are the crux moments for me where suddenly you open up to a new possibility and a fresh evolution takes place, I think, in terms of who you are. There's something else comes through and says, right, now we're ready for the next version of you. So I can sort of see where those crises come in. They're also the next evolutions of who I am come with them.
It's interesting talking about the archetypes because the martyr archetype ultimately doesn't serve us. It's something we really need to grow through and out of. You had the martyr, you had the warrior, and you had, what was the other one?
Savior.
And the savior. The savior and martyr are kind of a similar vibe.
Okay, yeah.
And they just are, ultimately, they just don't help us grow. The warrior archetype is quite interesting, though, when that moves out of the ego-based energy, and that sort of how that sort of can then transform. And it sounds like, because that being 26 and facing in, you're talking about it and it's courage.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when we sort of take the warrior archetype and it evolves. It comes from a different place inside. Well, actually, you're being a warrior, but it's a different type of warrior. It's this, the vulnerable warrior, this who can hold all of these different parts of yourself, and the courage it takes to be vulnerable is so much more actually than the courage it takes not to be.
Yeah, in pieces of work that I've done or been required to do, that word keeps coming, just courage at the base of everything, and I think that is probably at the heart of me, is that warrior side of things. That as a young sort of child, running away from something, the courage was to just keep achieving and take on all these outward challenges. But like you said, that switch moment when I heard about this possibility for this inner challenge and that inner warrior, as it were, I think that's been a gift that I would say, what is one of the gifts I'm grateful for all of them, but one do I think it is the awareness that comes with, I'm aware of me before I'm aware of what's on the outside. And then the courage or interest, curiosity to go there it feels like something difficult to generate.
Yeah.
When it's not. I know if I was speaking to myself at 21 and went, hey, listen, there's this really cool thing we can look at, and you'd be like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Like this room is for warriors, we're taking on this chat, and that's brilliant at that time. But for me, as part of my life, that's been the key source, as being able to, to be aware of what's happening within me and to hold that above everything, and then to look there before I look anywhere else. Because what I've sort of found is that you look after that energy and it looks after the unknown. What I tried to do as a warrior was look after the unknown without looking after the energy.
Yeah.
And you end up suffering the energy and suffering the unknown. You don't even get both. You don't get one. You end up losing on both.
Yeah.
But when you look after the inside, so you still doesn't mean you get the unknown your way, but the unknown starts to always end up your way anyway.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it points to a new challenge. It points to a new opportunity. But that's definitely been for me one of those things that I'll always be grateful for, that I don't know why I didn't sit there and go, I'm going to do this now. It's just like, this feels like it's part of my journey.
Yeah, you're not white knuckling. That's the thing. We're kind of almost, it's that, because the white knuckling ultimately will end in tears. So when we think about that thing of I'm in control, I'm winning, and I'm in control of the future, I'm in control of everything, ultimately will end in tears.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
Because it's just not possible.
But I think that's the saviour archetype you said before.
It's the saviour archetype. And that's also why being present is that's what it's all about. That's why it's an ancient way of being, because it works, ultimately. Did you always want to be a rugby player?
I think we're into that inspirational or that spontaneous side where my dad put a rugby ball in my hand. It's like, get this. This is it. And there were other things I used to do, and I got those as well. Ball sports, it just made sense to me. But for some reason, it had to be rugby.
How old were you when you...
3 or 4. So we started playing, my brother and I, my brother started the year before me, he's a year old, a year and a bit older, and he was 4. So when I was 3, I was on the sideline holding this ball. And then when I was 4, I joined in. And you started at under 8s, and it was full tackling. So I'm 4 years old, and I wasn't a big 4-year-old, and there's these 8-year-olds, and you're just like, yeah, go on. And you just go, okay, yeah, baptism of fire, you go and tackle them.
So quite fearless.
That warrior archetype.
Yeah.
And the saviour side, it's like, and the martyr side, you're almost like, I haven't really got a choice. And you kind of, and I remember you used to be the fullback, stood at the back. When you're defending, one of the opposition, a little young person runs through, and it's you versus them. And I used to be this kind of, you're not getting past me type of, and people used to talk about it. And this was the identity kicking in, this sense of I'm becoming someone. I'm not that fearful kid anymore. This is what I'm doing. But then you try and protect that for the next one. And it just becomes...
It's like it's a snowball,
it's a snowball effect. Yeah. And this is what I speak to a lot of people in my sport about. So what's the hardest thing? And the majority will say it's once you gain a bit of a reputation and a role or an identity within the team, it just gets harder and harder because you start to feel like, and it's often people who take it this way, maybe they've got some of that saviour in them. They're sort of going, they just feel like it's all on them, especially guys that have to kick the ball through the post. And this has been my understanding of it, is that, like you said, with that presence, you've got your intention, you've got what you can do about it, but you let that energy that you build take care of the unknown. Yeah. Or you go, oh, it's me that kicks it from here and gets it through there, instead of having the humility to say it's me that just kicks it and it goes where it goes. And if I keep it as simple as that, I can probably enjoy this and keep going out there and giving it my full thing. But as soon as you take credit for everything, you end up trying to play God, as it were, and then you realise that you are not equipped.
And when those failures come, because they do, because we're human,
of course,
right?
Enormous, yeah,
that's
and
what
tons
part
of
and
them.
parcel of being like, being in life, being who we are.
Yeah.
Then you're taking that in such a personal way that it's literally taking you out of the knees.
100%. And the other thing that just for me is quite exciting about that mindset of constant desiring challenge and growth and evolution, all those kind of things, is you go out there and you play or you train in a way that's looking to challenge yourself and enter new space and see what you're capable of. Then when things don't happen, they tend to be a sign you're on the right path. When you go out there to get things right, when they don't happen, it is failure. So when people say, oh, there's no such thing as failure, well, yeah, it just depends where you're coming at it from. If you go out there and just keep trying to tick boxes, when things don't happen, it's a cross.
Yeah.
When you go out there to say, I'm here to get better and I'm here to find out more about yourself,
it's always a tick. It's always a win.
Tick.
Yeah.
It's always a tick. And that's what I mean about looking after that space. It's really, really powerful, but everything's set up around teams and players to drive them to become that. We all love the story about the invincible, the one that never misses, the one we can rely on, the hero, this, whatever. So we build these stories. And the sensational angle of it is that you're setting up for a fall. Like you said, it always ends in tears. And even if it doesn't end in tears during the career, it ends in tears when the career finishes or whenever else. It's there has to be a come down and realization that, like you said, it's not who we really are. It's something we've concocted. And that kind of inauthenticity is kind of the bit that's setting you up for the fall, I think.
Hi, it's Estelle here, and I'm so excited to share my new book with you, Manifest Your True Essence, Clear Your Blocks, Find Your Joy, Live Your Truth. This is more than just a book. It's an invitation to come home to your heart. Within its pages, you'll find the guidance to reconnect with your true essence. Through gentle meditations, heart-centered practices, and soulful wisdom, you'll learn how to release old patterns, embrace your divine spark, and manifest a life filled with love, purpose, and connection. Remember, you are love, you are light, and you are infinitely powerful. It's interesting because you're a classic example of someone who manifested, and in a profound way. And it sort of got you to this incredible place when we are manifesting from that place, it has a ceiling. And that's the interesting thing about healing, because actually you can manifest from that place, but you'll get to that place and like you say, you get there and it's not what it's cracked up to be. It feels unfulfilled in some way. But it's also part and parcel of it's a journey, isn't it? That step took you to another step. We're also really compassionate around that.
I think there's a lot of the forced manifestation.
Yeah.
Instead of that effortless. And because I'll always say, on the field, I had those moments of pure effortless manifestation to the point where you're kind of not quite sure what the hell is going on.
So it's like a download almost. It's when it just flows through you. It's
an out of body experience to the point whereby your relationship with time has disappeared. You're not quite sure whether, did you do that? Did you know that was coming? How did you know that? Did you see it first? It's like, it's all, what sense am I actually using here?
So it's like a quantum thing, isn't it?
It's very, very, really, really interesting. And that was almost the one opportunity for a guide in my life. But then there was the changing room version of me who's in there trying to control the future, trying to look after all the what ifs and the catastrophizing and trying to get support from the guys to make sure everything's all right and trying to get the guarantee. And that was the other opportunity for the guide in my life. The problem is that probably the way things are set up is that it was all about preparation. And that led me to go, I'm going to listen to you, changing room me. And I'm not going to listen to you, flow moment me. And so I'm going to, this is reality. That's kind of fluke.
Okay.
Or that's caused by this. So the more of this I do, the more of that I'll get. The more I stress and sort out the unknowns, the more I'll get those flow moments. And that relationship with the unknown was undoubtedly what got harder and harder as I then tried to take more credit for those successes or whatever. But those flow moments disappeared. They got less and less and less. And I think that forced manifestation, like you said, got me so far, but that ceiling was felt in breakdown.
Yeah.
Just that force, constant stress, the intensity, the no relaxation, the no healing, the no self-trust, the no openness, the sheer just push and the lack of pull meant that, that was always going to end where it did. But like you said, in terms of for some reason that expression came to me is that you heal into your potential. And I think I was trying to force my way into my potential. But from a young age, that force had some space because I didn't have this identity of who I am and all these conclusions about life. So that force had some room to keep, so it felt good. With it comes quick gains and it feels like, it's working and I'm growing. But then the more you make up your mind about who you are, which is kind of a force in itself, when you force on top of that, it starts to tip over into survival. And that's what most of that career was just survival. Like you said, you've got these conclusions about who I am and how things should be, and now I've got to keep them alive against the unknown of all these amazing players coming this way and all these people and all their thoughts and feelings who are watching, and I've got to keep them all okay. Instead of that space when you're young of just like, let's go see what's possible.
Yeah.
I couldn't bear those people in the change room who I'd go, how do you feel about the game? Are you ready? And they'd be like, yeah, it's good. You'd be like, what are you doing? We've got a game in 5 minutes. Why aren't you super stressed? They'd be like, well, let's go out and see how it goes. Because I desperately wanted that relationship with the unknown to go out there and be able to say, it's all right.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what happens. If it goes well, it's great for me. If it doesn't go so well, it's probably even better for me. Let's just go out there and make the most of it, feel it, experience it. But I must have hit so many kicks in my career. I didn't feel them.
Did you feel the epic one? I mean, that was the one I was
The epic one was a funny one. Because
I was shown that the day before.
Right, okay.
I think I told you about that. And I was like, wow. And I have been to a few rugby games, but I did look at this and I thought, that's epic. It was epic. Tell me about what was going on, what was happening in the quantum field.
Well, this is a good example of...
If people don't know, it was in Australia.
In Australia, having got to the end of a World Cup, having had an unbeaten year the year before, we got all the way through to the final of the World Cup on a roller coaster journey against Australia, in extra time, at the end of extra time. And the ball ends up coming to me, from about 30 meters out, and I've got to drop kick this ball over the post. And there's probably 30 seconds left in the entire game. And everything has gone into this. There's probably no other way of saying it, that every dream is on the line with whether this goes over or not. I've been in situations like that before and afterwards, similar situations, but not as big in terms of what was on the line. But I've been in that position and been in that, I call it absent, but in other words, intellectual space of trying to work it out, and you're trying to think, how do I do this? And you're trying to perform through your mind instead of from the heart, from that open state. And it's impossible. It's impossible to be in that state. It's just, you are trying to force it, and because it's too big. Price is too big. As much as anyone says, how do you deal with the pressure? The only way you deal with that pressure is you realize there is no pressure. Because when you're in the open state, there's no pressure. If you are having a relationship where you are just open, you can't squeeze down anything to pressure it. Whereas when you've created this solid idea of this is who I am and this is what it's going to mean and this is this, now that can be pressured very quickly. And so I've been in those positions and I've almost just frozen. Yeah, even with all the practice I've done and how much I know, you still go ahead and give it your best shot. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But on this one occasion, for some reason, the ball hit me in the hands. And as soon as it hit me in the hands, I kind of started to go through the process, but I became a witness of it and an experiencer of it, but just not that taking credit doer of it. So I'm kind of feeling everything and I'm watching it unfold, but I'm not doing it. There's nothing here. And I remember seeing the ball drop from my hand and seeing the way it dropped, and I just knew how it would spin now because of exactly how it dropped. And I saw my right leg come through. And as it hit the ball, the feeling just matched. And then I see the ball and it's going through. And it's when the ball actually passes through the post that I click out of that. And I suddenly go, because that's the first time I've just realized what's happened. I was gone over. There is no kind of hit it and it's going over, we've done it. It's like I'm still in that space while it's going over. And then, oh God. And then I run back. I hit that ball with my right foot, which is, I'm a born left-footed kicker, but for some reason, again, coming back to that warrior idea, I used to stand in the garden and look at my right leg and at the age of 4 and think, why can't I kick off that leg just the same? So I started to do that. There was none of this, you should use your weaker leg. I didn't get that idea. It was like, I'm going to use this leg as well as this one. But I took that ball on the right foot and people say, well, yeah, why did you do that? And I know why I did, because it was strategically, it was an advantage to use that foot from where I was on the pitch for all kinds of reasons. But when I think about it, I go, I didn't even think about using that foot. I didn't think beforehand, this is going to be right-footed. I just caught the ball and the whole thing just went, whilst I watched and felt. And I remember feeling like if I could bottle that experience, because then the whistle goes afterwards and everyone jumps on each other and it's euphoric, it's ecstatic stuff. It's like ridiculous.
It's got to be crazy.
It is immense. And I get it why everyone needs to experience that around something that they dream of in their life. It's brilliant. But it's not a patch on what I would have bottled. It's not even in the same, it's not on a scale. It's on a different plane. And the plane there is boundless. This plane is on a scale. Well, that felt here and this one felt here and that victory felt here and they're amazing and this was better than this. But that bottled experience, there is no comment to make about it. It's not about whether it's better than this. It's just, this is what living's all about. And finding that experience, but in being and not through that chaotic doing, through the passion of whatever has been a bit of a journey, to find that kind of unfolding. And you mentioned some of the conversations that we have is that I find it in these, probably because it's passion driven. That was an experience. It was a brand new experience. At the key moment of my career, I had a brand new experience I'd never had before. And when I enjoy these kind of conversations, I'm often in places where I'm thinking, what the hell are you saying? Where's this coming from? And it's like, I don't think I'm saying it. I'm kind of in that bottled space a little bit, sat there just almost going, this is interesting.
Do you feel like you're a channel in those moments?
Yeah.
Which is what happens when we're in meditative state. When we look to be in meditative state, and that's science, we are looking to move the brain waves from beta to theta and alpha, which is also unlocks our genius lounge. It's a part of the brain
Yeah,
that
nice.
gets unlocked. But it's almost that thing, isn't it, where, it is you're in a state of consciousness or you're in a state of, is it oneness? Can we think about, you were talking about the boundless idea, which is infinite, and that's what consciousness is. What happens? What is that? Just thinking about that.
Yeah, I did mention this to someone I sort of, who was a channel from a spiritual sense. In one of my podcasts, I sort of said, look, are we all not channeling in some ways through exactly what you said, accessing that inner genius? And I love the scientific recordings of it. This is what seems to be happening whilst that's happening. And because that gives us an understanding of how we can perhaps cultivate this inner condition for these experiences. And the person said back, it's kind of used the word, it's like you're being inspired. And I sort of felt, is that like lesser than being a channel, to be inspired? Is it like channelings? But in a way, I think it's the same thing. I think and this is coming back to that idea about taking credit, so I work with people who kick balls now, so I work with a few, and I love the experience. And this is another place where I'll get constant downloading and unfolding stuff, and I just love it. One of the things that's really interesting is that when you enter that space of exploring, you get these amazing outcomes often. Sometimes you get those ones we speak about where it's not quite right, but it's a tick because it's telling you we're on the right path, stay with it. And then you get this amazing outcome, but the one after is never as good because there's a desire to replicate. Even as much as you try to say, I'm just going to go and start again, the brain has gone, right, I did this and this and this and I got that, so I'm going to... And I think that's kind of what's behind that idea of growing up and getting success, is you start to form these conclusions and these ideas, but they get in the way of the channeling. And the channeling for me is somehow that ability to, and I heard someone else say this, who I spoke to, is a really powerful thing, is allow yourself to be felt and allow yourself to be thought, rather than you always doing the feeling and the thinking. I'm feeling this and I'm thinking this. What happens when you get out of the way and thoughts come through? It's like, well, who's thinking those? And that's what I mean about your channeling. But are you channeling just deeper parts of you and your gift and your purpose and your guide or whatever it is? But that's kind of what I love looking at things as. Not so much, right, here I come, I'm going to give you my opinion on what you've asked me, but more, okay, what you've asked me, this is what's coming through me now. And rather than have that and be able to decipher between that compulsion that hears a word and starts to think, I can say that, which I know about, which is going to make people think I know this, and that voice, or the voice that sort of gets that, or this feels relevant for me to say this, like I'm being guided to say this. And I think that's a really healthy way, if you can, of navigating your way through days, is to see those exchanges taking place where we're all prompting each other to bring something new through, if we're willing to see what almost like the higher version of you has to say about this. I wonder what the higher version of me has to think about this. Let me get out of the way. Interesting. Or I wonder what I truly think about this. And I think that's what I mean about the healing, is you're kind of almost just getting out of the way, and it gives you access to stuff you kind of, or to deeper areas and things of who you are. But there's also that opportunity to say, once I'm here and I want to perform, I can't let my preparation perform for me. I've got to do the performing. And we speak about this with some of the players when they're in an anxious, nervous state. You can see, you're saying, look, the problem is at the moment is that you're trying to kick this ball, but you're asking your bodyguards to kick the ball. They're not very good kickers. They're great at keeping you safe when it's their time. Pull them back in and you kick the ball. The one thing I regret is those moments where you kind of go, I hid. Or if I didn't hide, I let those that other part of me try and perform when actually it was this part that was designed for that feel.
You're touching your heart there.
Mm.
And I do love that. What does the heart represent for you? When we think about doing things from the heart, living a heart-based life, what's in the heart for you?
It is that space of unconditional, and it's the unknown, surprising sort of side of things. And it's that deeper voice. It's the softer kind of effortless truth, as it were.
So we're kind of connected. You feel that we connect to our higher selves through this.
100%. And I think that the issue that I've had has always been, and I think it's always going to be a big one for me to face, is that when I hear a lot of things, I get it straight away. I understand it. Someone explains something, it's like, yeah, I've got it around the spiritual side, and I start to play with it, and I sort of deduce things from it, and I come up with ideas, and I can work things out from it, but it's all up here. I don't live it necessarily. And it almost touches on that, and I can be confused by thinking, yeah, it's really, but there's that sense of it's not quite dropped and become that authentic version of it. And I think that's where like I said, those moments of acceptance have always just been that kind of
the dropping in.
And it's not always like a kind of, oh wow, that feels amazing. It's often, I can't bear this. But then it drops you into that connection to yourself. And like I said, I blocked a lot of that up because of that fear when I was young. Just growing up with that sense of insufficiency and fear and everything's not all right, it's a vulnerable state and quite susceptible state to be in. So it's really strange to say this, but I was on the field and I would do anything to smash people in tackles. That was like I said, I grew up in this thing. I'm the savior, the warrior, whatever. So I would try and destroy people in tackles, but I would be really affected by brutality.
Just your sensitivity, because I think that's one of the things.
Exactly that point. And that compromise, when I stepped over the line, when I could feel that, didn't happen often, but when I stepped over that line of aggression, it would really hurt me.
So that was like self-harm?
Serious self-harm. Because that sensitive side I consider to be much more here. Whereas this side about the earning the respect and winning the game and all that stuff, it's kind of like a distorted version of this once it goes through the filter.
Yes.
Goes through refracted by the belief prisms, and it comes out as this sense of good and bad and right and wrong. But actually underneath, as soon as you switch that off, a lot of the stuff I feel I've been impacted by has been, like a lot of people who grow up and you have that sensitive desire to connect and whatever, and it can be really affected by the kind of the ruthlessness and the brutality of it. And a lot of that is in all kinds of worlds, especially around media and these kind of things and the way things are handled. So yeah, I'd find that would be a real issue for me.
We know about men's mental health. We know that it's suffering. We know that the greatest killer of men under the age of 50, 40 is suicide. So there is something that's not in alignment. You know, when we talk about sensitivity, it's not even you being sensitive. It's just you are sensitive because you are human. And it's men not having an opportunity to explore vulnerability or explore not winning or explore how they feel about their brutality, not desensitizing or actually disengaging. It's a sort of disassociation that happens, isn't there?
Yeah.
But then the after effect is actually what's in your heart when you've gone in and done, you've kind of taken it to its limit, but it's sort of an abandoning of self was happening there somehow. So it was painful for you.
I think my if I describe it as mental health, has always been in those crisis moments, like you said, around vulnerability. And I think that's where my perspective is. I think it's quite clear. It's not so much about, we look at this mental health this way or that way. But for me, the way I see it is that knowing just on my own scale what that challenge has been in the privileged position I've always been in, moving into that vulnerability, it feels a little bit like, for rugby players or sports people, everyone's on the outside watching these people play this game, and the game is the center of attention. But when you look at mental health and people going through that challenge, that's the real meaningful match that's being played. And that's the way I view it. So when I'm drawn towards people that are having difficulties in that space, because my basic understanding as I see it is that there's a degree of being chosen in there to have an opportunity for this unfolding and this evolution, and to come closer to here, and whatever that means for that person and whatever that's going to bring out into the world. But no one drops into here and brings darkness into the world. And facing vulnerability and having moments of vulnerability that you cannot turn away from is where these people find themselves. I think it's when those ones where you have a moment you can get out of it by, I did just do a bit of this. But when you're stuck and the only way out is into that vulnerability, into yourself, you kind of, I center there and go, yeah, here's the big game. It's like, whatever. This is the real moment, and these are the real people, and they need to be supported in any way possible.
Thank you, Jonny. I want to talk about your drinks.
Oh, okay, yep.
I want to talk about One Living.
Nice.
Because I think a lot of people would have seen One Living I've seen it in Planet Organic. You've said it's in all sorts of places.
Yeah. We've got these ones, and we've got ambient sugar-free versions in Sainsbury's, in Boots, in all kinds of places. Holland Barrett.
That's it.
We've got our health shots. We've got 5 different ones. You can find those in Tesco's. You'll find those in other places all around. We're in gyms. We're in all kinds of brilliant places. This understanding that looking after the inside takes care of the outside. It's about what you put into your body. It's about sleeping. It's about breathing. It's about movement. But definitely what you put in your body, and it's huge. But what I see it all as part of this kind of inner sort of chemistry where you're kind of just working on these things and exploring that inner state. And so I started to explore what makes the biggest difference.
So let's just get clear on that, as if you're listening to this. What you're talking about is your gut.
Gut health, mind, brain, gut connection. We've got kombucha, we've got water kefirs, we've got, all kinds of amazing stuff. And the big opportunity was in the living element of that, but also in terms of whether it comes from the health shots and all the different ingredients that come together to kind of amplify. It's all about making the biggest difference to that internal side in areas where we are most likely kind of struggling.
I love the story too. I mean, you've got great flavours, ginger, turmeric, passion fruit.
Yeah, raspberry and pomegranate.
And raspberry pomegranate. But you started...
And mango, we've got another one. Sorry, I didn't bring
that. And mango, love mango. You started making these in your kitchen?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was in that space of I'd needed to change, and I sort of started to go on this journey of realising that I needed to start to look at my body differently. Rather than just a machine that you pour fuel into, you realise that what you eat actually becomes your body. It's funny that you kind of, every cell dies over a certain time, more or less, and when it rebuilds out of food and sunlight and everything. So you kind of realise you build yourself out of what you eat. I was looking into mental health. My wife was training to become a nutritionist, and we both crossed on this fermented foods, living drinks. So we started walking, picking blackberries, and we'd start making it at home. Got some wrong, that's for sure, and got some right, and just started to play around with it, and just found there was a real ease, and it brought about an ease and a connection, like I said, into that effortless space as opposed to the forced. But the brilliant thing is that I love about it is what it's made with makes a difference. If it's made with care, if it's made with love, this has been scientifically proven also. It's a living, unique thing which is going to respond to your body.
I would challenge anyone to drink one of these One Livings.
Yeah, nice.
And not want to drink
another one
again.
Yeah.
Because it's really good. So if you do see one of these, have a try.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jonny Wilkinson.
Pleasure.
For being on the Love Purpose Connection podcast.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's been so amazing to have you, and I can't wait to see what unfolds for you.
Thank you so much for listening to Love Purpose Connection with me, Estelle Bingham. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'd really appreciate that. And if you really liked it, then leave me a review so I can keep doing what I love, healing one heart at a time. You can also follow me, Estelle.Bingham, on Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest releases. If you feel in need of some extra guidance, then my book, Manifest Your True Essence, could be helpful. You can find it online or in any major bookshop. In the meantime, thanks again for listening, thanks again for watching, and I will join you on the next episode of the Love Purpose Connection podcast.